Welcome back to Tactical Pontoon. This is James, and let's swim a little with the pontoon. What do we got here today? Let's see. You've probably heard of them with their AR-15 magazines, but Amen 2. They have just released their Glock 43 and Glock 42 magazines. I've been meaning to try their AR-15 mags. I've heard nothing but good reviews from them. As of yet, I have not picked them up. But as soon as I noticed that they had started with the Glock 43, I jumped on it. I was pretty excited. And then I noticed on their website that they're producing, or will be producing, Glock 19 and Glock 17 mags. Which, I'm a Glock guy, so I'm very excited to see that. Here it is, just your small standard capacity, 6 rounds. Aesthetically, it's a pretty pleasing mag. It's lightweight. I really wish they had done the pinky extension version. I don't really have large hands, but when I grab the Glock 43, I really do prefer the extension on there instead of just having my pinky hang down below. That's just me. It's got the number 2. Just like their AR-15 magazines, kind of cool, which means you're really not going to be able to use the factory pinky extension on there. Maybe if you were to put the, and I haven't tried it, but the factory end plate, little follower plate. This number 2 is actually too small to use a Glock tool with, so to take it apart, I just use a little precision screwdriver, and it just pops right apart. It's a good looking spring, nothing terribly innovative. It is a magazine. The follower is kind of basic in comparison to the Glock follower. I have not used any live rounds through it, but I don't see why it's not going to work. I've thumbed a couple in there and thumbed them back out and filled it back up several times. Can't see anything really wrong with it, but we'll have to get out to the range and do some actual testing. There's some casting flash on the little plate keeper. The lips are a little bit sharp. Some flash on those as well. From what I can tell, having read up on their AR-15 mags, that seems to be kind of a common gripe that people have with Amen 2, is that that some of their edges are still a little bit sharp. But really, that's nothing some sandpaper can't cure. Really, it's a nice little magazine. I'm glad to see another player in the Glock magazine market. Amen 2. American company. It's built in America, so that's a good thing, putting people to work. However, if I could get a hold of one person or one company to finish their Glock magazines, it would be HexMag. For a year now, ever since SHOT Show, they introduced their Glock magazines, but that's it. There's no other information, and I've been bothering them, I've been bugging them, I've been posting pictures on Facebook and Instagram, tagging them to it, and still nothing. Come on, guys. Let's get your magazines up and running, because I'd like to give them a try. I love my Magpul magazines. I have more of those than I have Glock magazines, and there's nothing wrong with Glock magazines, but can't have stock. And speaking of can't have stock, got one of these bad boys in hand, a Zev Fulcrum trigger. It's just the trigger bar with the shoe, highly polished and whatnot, or at least semi-highly polished. This is a very expensive little trigger bar. And honestly, I had not ever really planned on picking one of these up because it's kind of old school, if you ask me. And aside from the nice pre-travel adjustment and the over-travel adjustment, it's really just kind of a basic trigger. And I'm fully capable of polishing my trigger bar. And if I wanted a curved trigger, I would go with somebody. I would buy a $50 shoe from Kinetitech or something of the like. I've dropped it in my Glock 19 a couple times. Tried it out. I didn't really play with the adjustments. As it is, from the factory, it's adjusted relatively well. And now, how did I get this? Because I'll tell you, I did not pay full price for this. I will not pay full price for this. I won this in a little bit of a raffle. And more than likely, after I do some measuring on it and judging it over what other projects I have, this is probably going to get rehomed because it's just not my style, and I'm sure somebody else will appreciate it a lot better than I would. So that's the Zev Fulcrum. I'm sure for some people that's a beautiful thing. Speaking of things that I'm just not entirely, the SSVI Tyr trigger, which you've probably seen in a couple of my other videos. I've had this a while. I bought it used. Got a fairly decent price. I got it for a fairly decent price. I shot with it a few times, and while it is aesthetically pleasing, probably one of the most beautiful Glock triggers out there, it's another, it looks good. I wish that maybe I had the blue one or the gold one or something, but the black just makes it double meh, at least until recently. Did a little bit of playing with trigger bar tuning and setting up a few different things. This is my carry gun, my G19, Generation 3, with all factory internals except for this Tyr trigger. And now I think I like it. Not only is it aesthetically pleasing, it feels right. With the 5-pound connector and the factory striker spring, the factory striker, the trigger spring, I've got this, I would say, low 5, high 4-pound. And granted, this Glock, due to all of the irregularities with all the Glock trigger or Glock frames, this one's always been a little bit lighter than say, for example, my Glock 17 or other Glocks that I've played with. So it already had a fairly light trigger. With a little bit of tuning, I got it. This Tyr trigger is now, I'm very happy with it, and more than likely it will stay in my carry Glock, and instead of being rehomed like I had originally planned, it's going to stay with me. I'm really, really, really liking it now. So, as it was, straight out of the box, it was so-so. I always felt it was kind of spongy. No matter what gun I put it in, it just had a lot of travel. It was beautiful, but it just never really made me happy. And now, with factory internals, mind you, look at that, right there. Just beautiful, beautiful. Now it lives up to the Norse god name. I can live with this now. Oh yes. And speaking of ancient mythology and old things in general, by the time you watch this video, this next trigger is pretty much gone. Actually, it's more than just gone, but maybe there's a chance you picked one of these up before it disappeared. That would be the Suarez Semi Flat, which is quite a name, by the way, a semi flat trigger. You know, at least I guess I could have called it the gutter snap. I don't know. But semi-flat trigger. This one was recently on sale for basically on clearance because from what I can tell, nobody really bought one. So they were on clearance. So I had to pick one up for $20. I'm a trigger freak. So when I saw it was $20, $5 shipping, $25, I said, I got to have it. I'm going to give it a try. And it came in today, and you might say, well, James, that looks like the Apex Tactical Trigger. Yes, it does. And while I don't have an Apex Tactical Trigger shoe at this point, from all that I can tell, it's damn near identical, except for a little bit rougher and $25. So most of what I'm saying, at least at this point, until I get one in my hands, and if you'd like to donate one, you're more than welcome to. Maybe I'll trade you a Zev Fulcrum for it. It's basically an Apex Tactical Trigger. I'm sure it's not a direct copy. You know, nobody would ever do that. But it's a little bit rougher. The trigger blade safety, I actually had to do a little bit of filing down on it, and it actually came very rough and unpainted, at least the notch part that fits against the frame. It actually came unpainted and very rough, so I didn't mind doing a little bit of tweaking on it before I got it installed. And with a little bit of tweaking, tuning on the trigger bar, this gun has the Zev race connector, which is probably, if I was going to do an aftermarket connector, and I have more than a few of them, if I was going to do one, it would be the Zev. Hands down, Ghost just doesn't stand a chance, at least at this point from what I've been able to see. And it has the Wolf 6-pound trigger spring. Up top, everything is factory. This is just my takeoff Glock 22 slide from one of my Polymer 80 builds. So everything up top is factory, but down below you've got the connector and the 6-pound spring. The trigger bar itself is not polished. It's just one that I had that I could stick that shoe on and do a little bit of tweaking to, but it's not polished. But I gotta say, I have to say, oh my goodness. Now granted, out of the box, yours is not going to do this. Trust me, I tried it straight out of the box. But there's the take-up. That guy right there. Oh yeah. There's our reset. Oh yeah. Watch, take up, right there. That's take up. It's an ugly trigger. Let's be honest. Apex does not make a beautiful trigger. Suarez, who did not copy this, also did not make a beautiful trigger. Now they have their tactical trigger, which I may or may not have a couple of those shoes on the way to try. Seems like they're possibly getting out of the trigger shoe business or something. I've been running some sales on them, so being the trigger freak that I am, I picked those up as well. They're just not here yet. It's not an aesthetically pleasing trigger like the Tyr. I mean, the Tyr is just artwork. That is artwork. This is clunky. It's starting to grow on me. I'm not gonna lie, but it looks too much like an M&P because nobody runs a factory M&P trigger because and I don't want my guns looking like an M&P. They're better than that. They really are. They're They're square Glocks. They're not Smith & Wessons. Anyways. Beautiful trigger. Probably at this point has become my favorite trigger shoe. My favorite trigger out of my pistols. And even though it's ugly, dear God, do I love this trigger. So it's a dinosaur now, but granted the apex is very similar, and when I get my hands on one of those, which I'm offering, if you would like to trade me out for a Zev, I'd do it. I'll get an apex in hand and I'll give it a try, but pretty sure it's going to be the same idea. And gotta say, really enjoying it. Now, granted, I still have to do a little bit of tuning to my Kinetitech trigger setup, and I'm doing some stuff with the factory bar and the factory trigger. More than likely, I'll have my own trigger assembly out here soon. More than likely with an aluminum shoe. I'll probably offer the factory plastic shoe as an option, but I got stuff in works. This week, while it has been crazy in many aspects of life, I finally got a chance to do some of my Glock trigger projects. So, got some really good stuff on the way. So that's been Tactical Pontoon for now. I think we're about done swimming. And if you have any questions, if you have an Apex tactical trigger that maybe you want to trade or just donate to the cause, let me know down below. If you have any questions or you want to learn any more about Glock triggers, which I'll be having more videos on connectors, spring combinations, just some of the general safety tips on keeping your safety while adjusting pre-travel. Just let me know what you'd like to see, and like, subscribe, and we will see you later on Tactical Pontoon.